The journey from the rugged peaks of Mount Sinai to the desert oasis of Kadesh-barnea is one of the most poignant, so close, yet so far narratives in history. It should have been a short trek, roughly an 11-day walk, but it became a spiritual crucible that redefined a nation. Here's the story of that journey, as chronicled in the book of Numbers. For a year, the Israelites had camped at the foot of Mount Sinai. They had received the law, built the tabernacle, and organized themselves into a structured nation. Then, in the second month of the second year, the cloud of glory lifted from the tent of the Lord's presence. The silver trumpets blasted, and the tribes set out in a specific, divinely mandated order. Leading the way was the Ark of the Covenant. Whenever the Ark moved, Moses would pray, "Arise, Lord, and scatter your enemies. Let those who hate you run away from you." The honeymoon phase of the journey didn't last long. Only 3 days into the march, the people began to complain about their hardships. When the Lord heard them, his anger burned, and fire destroyed the edges of the camp. They named the place Tabor, but the complaining didn't stop there. A mixed crowd among them began to crave the food they left behind in Egypt. They looked at the miraculous manna falling from heaven and felt bored. They cried out, "If only we had some meat. We remember the fish we used to eat for nothing in Egypt, and the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our strength is gone. There is nothing at all to eat, nothing but this manna, day after day." Moses, feeling the crushing weight of leadership, asked God for help. In response, God shared the spirit that was on Moses with 70 leaders. He promised the people so much meat it would come out of their noses. A wind from the Lord brought quail from the sea, but as the people gorged themselves, a plague broke out. They buried the dead at Kibroth Hattaavah, the graves of craving. At their next stop, Hazeroth, the rebellion hit closer to home. Aaron and Miriam, Moses' own siblings, began to criticize him, partly because of his Cushite wife, but mostly because they were jealous of his authority. They asked, "Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Hasn't he also spoken through us?" The Lord called a surprise meeting at the tent of presence to set the record straight, defending Moses' unique humility and faithfulness. Miriam was struck with a dreaded skin disease as a result of the rebellion. Though Moses prayed for her healing, and she was restored after 7 days, the journey was delayed. The lesson was clear. God's chosen order was not to be trifled with. Finally, the nation arrived at the wilderness of Paran and camped at Kadesh. This was the doorstep to Canaan. Moses sent 12 spies, one from each tribe, to scout the land. After 40 days, the spies returned. They brought back a cluster of grapes so large it took 2 men to carry it on a pole. Their report started well, but ended in terror. "We explored the land and found it to be rich and fertile, and here is some of its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and their cities are very large and wealthy. We felt as small as grasshoppers, and that is how we must have appeared to them." Panic gripped the camp. Despite the pleas of Joshua and Caleb, the only 2 spies who'd believed God would give them victory, the people wept all night. They even began to plot to choose a new leader and head back to Egypt. The Lord's patience reached its limit. He appeared in glory and spoke to Moses. "How much longer will these people reject me? How much longer will they refuse to trust me, even though I have performed so many miracles among them?" Because the people had refused to trust God, the short trip became a lifetime sentence. God declared that for every day the spies spent in the land 40 days, the nation would wander a year in the desert. The entire generation that complained would die in the wilderness, except for Caleb and Joshua. The Israelites realized their mistake and tried to invade the land the next morning without God's blessing, but they were soundly defeated. They turned back into the desert, starting a 40-year journey toward a destination they had already reached once, but were not yet ready to enter.